So I want to give you all the latest update. Uh, so, as many of you know, I suffered a catastrophic stroke on January 14th, 2023. And I had to learn to walk all over again, talk all over again. And one of the weird things to me is that they didn't stop the clock on my child support. And they told me that that's just how it's done. And once I got the disability determination, they didn't retroactively wind the clock back, which I find funny because I was a potato. Uh, I'm now potato salad or tater tots, but I was just an actual potato at the time. I couldn't speak. I couldn't control my bodily functions, and they were still running the clock. And after I got my disability decision, uh, they didn't retroactively stop the clock, and they acted like they didn't trust me that a couple $100,000 in medical bills, 3 weeks in the ICU, including 5 days in a full blown coma, was just a dodge. Uh, so. Uh, the long story short is I have come to the conclusion that that system is punitive. And I appealed because I need my passport to get to Costa Rica, and I appealed, and that was denied, and I appealed the appeal, and that was similarly denied with a letter from this attorney lady in Yakima that clearly hadn't looked at anything. Uh, so they won't do me the courtesy of allowing me to admit defeat and withdraw from the battlefield. They're withholding $200 a month extra from my SSDI, which is fine. I offered to double it. I offered to up it to 400, and they turned me down on the grounds that they could. There's no point other than punishing me for an 11-year-old divorce. So they're killing people. Like I blame them for the stroke because I was working two jobs, and uh, I had gotten down to $2,300 outstanding, and on the day of the stroke, they didn't stop the clock, and I'm back up almost to 6 grand. And I offered to pay it, but I just needed my passport so I could go to a place where rent is half what it is here, and food is half, and medical costs are half, and they turned me down. Well, I have a history of fighting dragons. From the two bullies that were picking on me when I was a kid, and my mom said, "Hey, you want me to do something?" And I knew what would happen if my mom went over there and talked to their dad or their parents. So I said no. And I went over and did it. At 9 years old, I knocked on the door of the house, and the two kids opened the door, and they looked at me kind of shocked and said, I said, "Hey, I want to talk to your dad." And they said, "You can't do that." And I said, "Well, you can't hold me while your little brother punches me and steal the money my mom sent me to the store for." And I raised my voice, and dad came out. And that was the last time they ever picked on me. Uh, a lot of bullies have found in my lifetime that I'm the wrong little man to pick on. And DSHS is about to find out that they've made a giant mistake by not letting me admit defeat and double what I was going to pay. Because, in the words of Willy Wonka, you get nothing, sir. You get nothing. I'm going to force the courts to rewind to make it a policy that on the date of a catastrophic stroke or other critical injury, the clock stops. You can't expect someone that isn't capable of tying their own shoes or walking or speaking or has had a heart attack or whatever life condition to keep going into debt like as a once SSA determines that you're disabled, the accrual period should be rewound to the date of the incident, right? Uh, uh, I'm going to war with DSHS. So after this, anybody that donates to my GoFundMe will understand that first thing's going to do is pay off the debt so I can buy my passport. But if the money spills over the top, I'm going to get to Costa Rica and then spend all my time trying to change the law. I was working two jobs and living in my truck for years. And my ex was a successful real estate agent with a well-renowned local company. And she knew damn well what situation I was in. It's wrong, and it's caused a lot of damage over the years. And once you get labeled a deadbeat, you have problems looking your kids in the eye. So they fucked with the wrong guy. I'm going to make sure the law gets changed. Action items for us are reach out to your representative. Make it clear that this is being done to people in your name and you won't stand for it anymore. I've heard nightmare stories about guys well into their 70s after a stroke and they were still having to dig out of the hole. And it's wrong. It's just wrong. I gave everything I had. I had the stroke because I was working two jobs and living in a truck. And I was working two jobs and living in a truck because they were taking a big, huge chunk of my pay because I was making $130,000 a year, and then I went down to $45,000 a year, and it took me 4 years to get adjusted. So that bill was racking up. I had worked my way down to from 32,000 to just over 2,000 on the day of the stroke, and then it popped me back up to 57, 5,800, and they don't apply any of the Social Security that she's getting on my behalf against my debt. I worked to gain her that benefit, but it doesn't count against my back debt. Uh, so uh, reach out to your representative. Uh, I want to make a couple of changes in the system, specific changes. So, first off, remove the King County Prosecutor's Office from the first part of the the process, right? Getting mail from your ex's attorney is scary enough. Getting mail from the King County Prosecutor's Office on what is essentially a civil matter is terrifying, and I just shit my pants every time that envelope showed up because they're a prosecutor's office, right? They deal with criminals, and losing your job shouldn't make you a criminal. Uh, uh, only involve them if there's like an active case of hiding assets. I was never I had no assets to hide. I had to sell everything, and yeah. Speed up the the recalculation process for a change of circumstances, both positive or negative. I was, I if I had a positive change, I was willing to I was willing to pay more, but 4 years is just ridiculous. Make allowances for people that got financially devastated during the divorce. So I lost everything, right? They washed me. She washed me through the court system, and I was lucky to still have a car. Uh, and she tried to ruin me at work, uh, and I was lucky to still have a job. Uh, and So make allowances in at least for the first few years for parents that get financially devastated, because I didn't have the resources to cover an extra hit. I was still paying off the appliances in her house. Uh, cool your roll. So even when somebody falls behind, don't jump the gun when they get a job. I got a job, and my second day, when I had $6 in my checking account, I woke up to find out the state had taken it. And I had that $6 so I could get myself a coffee and a gallon of gas. And I woke up. I had to call in to work on my second day because the state had impounded my last $6, fucking dollars, right? Calm your roll. There's nothing worse than going into a job in the first, couple of weeks before your first paycheck and having HR throw the eyeball on you because they got the call or the letter or however you guys are handling that. You're jumping the gun. Let somebody gain some credibility in their workplace before you go. And lastly, realize that life events are usually shared, right? If we'd kept the family together, and that wasn't an option, obviously, but had the family stayed together, we would have shared my stroke, right? Or whatever life event comes along. In my case, I'm being punished because I made the mistake of having the gall to get a divorce 11 years ago, and then losing a. So I stood it for 2 years, but then 3 years, and then the job, it just didn't work out, and then I was in the fucking hole like a rocket. So calm the jets. When somebody gets a new job, give them a breathing period, let them build up some money. So that's it. Look up your local state reps, call them, email them, do whatever Take the extra 5 minutes to familiarize yourself with that process. Just Google Washington State Representative Locator, and then follow the process and put in the word. And thank you. And I fundamentally do not oppose the child support system, but they've lost their fucking mind. It's punitive. She's using it. It's being used by people to crush people even years after the fact, and it's just not right. I would have been happy to pay twice as much if she did not burn me down. But as it is, I paid 115 grand, and I don't have my freedom. I can't travel free will. So please, your two action items are, if you haven't already done so, donate to my GoFundMe, and reach out to your state representatives, the governor's office, the attorney general, the King County prosecutor's office, and tell them, hey, this isn't, the legislature is where this has to change, because the prosecutor's office has been given a mandate. The law needs to change at the legislature. The Washington state legislature needs to change this. I can't calculate. I'm pretty good with data. At least I was before the stroke. I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of people have killed themselves under these circumstances. And as Charles Bukowski said, many a man has been put under a bridge by many a good man has been put under a bridge by a woman. So this isn't a new phenomenon, but Washington has a reputation for just crushing dudes, and it's got to stop. Thanks.